two microphones at a time? Is what we call double fisting, I guess. All right, so we'd like to simmer down, everybody. I know there's a hot topic, right? Capital One had a million accounts kind of hacked into, so I know this is super important to be able to make sure that we talk about this today. I am Sherman. I'm a sales director with Mutual of Omaha, and I've been asked to moderate today, so I'm grateful for the opportunity. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, which is the Houston Community College, or as we like to call it, HCC. I want to bring up Dean Matt Garza. He's over the Dean of the Southwest Campus here at HCC, and he's the presenting sponsor here of CyberTalk today.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everyone. It's our pleasure to be sponsoring this event on behalf of Dr. Barillo, our president, who could not be here today, and Houston Community College, and our chancellor. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the community in these cyber talks. These are actually, this is our space, and I say that because Houston Community College has a center of excellence, which is focusing on digital and information technology. And in fact, we have one of the best kept programs, or secrets I should say, in digital and information technology. So I'm going to invite a lot of you folks to come on down and visit our Southwest campus, because we have state-of-the-art equipment. We have stuff that NASA doesn't have in some instances. So I mean, it's really interesting stuff that we have. But beyond that, you know, the industries that we support through education run the gamut across the board. We are in cybersecurity. We are in healthcare, we are in advanced manufacturing, because all these areas and in business, they have the need for technology as far as the infrastructure that they're building in cybersecurity. And we have been fortunate enough with the leadership of our dean, Mr. Sean Amishi, to be able to establish a presence not only locally, but nationally. Houston Community College is known nationally. We have major certifications in our industry. And so with that in mind, I want to just invite you guys to reach out and touch base with our Digital Information Technology Center and schedule a field trip. You know what, we'd be more than happy to have you come out and learn a little bit more. But beyond the classroom, there's other partnership opportunities that we have. You know, we provide training opportunities, one-on-one for employers, short-term opportunities, as well as, you know, your standard curriculum. But we are capable and ready to provide that level of service. So once again, on behalf of Houston Community College, we want to thank you. I'm going to turn back over to Sherman. Will you be introducing Sean? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much, Dean Garza. So let's, without further ado, welcome our panelists. First, we're going to bring on Mark Elliott from 3i International. Come on down. Next, we have James Morrison, FBI computer scientist, and he's told me, he's promised, no interrogations for any of you today. He's seen what you post. All right, last, of course, Sean Amishi. Thank you for coming, Dean of HCC's Digital and Information Technology Center of Excellence. All right, so we're just going to jump right into this because the time is compressed here, everybody. We want to hear from all these great minds on this hot topic. But let's just throw it out to everybody, just one at a time here. First, head it over to Mark. What do you think is the top cybersecurity issue facing the world today?
You know, we see this on the front lines, and I think there could be several correct answers to this, but I think a lot of this comes down to employee education and awareness. And I think this is further exasperated by technology that continues to proliferate with the Internet of Things. And then I think you also look at supply chain within this area. And so when we look at technology growing and we have connected dishwashers to washing machines to devices that were in our homes, or you take the average car right now that has 2 million lines of code that is in a vehicle that's now connected to the internet. And so there are so many ways with the increasing cyber landscape that the bad actors can get into our lives. And then I think you start to look at supply chain. You start to look at the hackers that are trying to penetrate our personal lives and our businesses. They're not going directly into companies anymore. They're going through vendors, and I think we can all look back at stories like Target, who lost 40 million credit cards and 70 million pieces of personal information. It was because they came through the HVAC vendor. who was doing a firmware update on their cooling system, and he had malware on his laptop. And I think you look at a statement that came from the Wall Street Journal that 97% of all Fortune 500 companies admit that they're currently compromised. The other 3% don't know, or they won't admit it. And if that's happening to people that have multi-million-dollar security budgets, how does a small business protect itself? Right? We have to become very, very vigilant in what we're doing in this area. But we talk to so many small and medium enterprises that say, we don't have secrets that are covered by third world countries. We're just a small business. But to which we say, you have employees, don't you? Right? And our employers are so good to all of us that they have nice onboarding packages for us, that for everyone in our immediate family can tell you it's our social security number and birth dates. And they're so good to us that they do direct deposit, right? So we give them a voided check that has all our bank routing information on it, which is everything that somebody of my skill set needs to take all the money out of your checking account. So we have to be very vigilant in an area where they look at things like ransomware. And Cyber Ventures says that by 2023, this is going to be a $6 trillion industry. So we need to watch our money and we need to watch our companies.
Yeah, I mean, Mark sets this thing up, and so well, we were kind of, I'm sorry, I laugh about this, but I watch TV and come on Internet of Things, and I see the commercial that says, Alexa, set my oven to 350. Yeah. In my semi-criminal mind, I say, Alexa, burn my house down. Because that's what you're doing by exposing your stuff that way. And one thing Mark kind of touched on, the mindset of the cyber criminal is different than what we normally think. The cyber criminal is not what can I steal from you. It's what's so important to you that you'll pay me to get it back. Think about that for a second. And Mark's absolutely right. Right now, $1.5 trillion of cybercrime. 1.5 trillion, and that's underreported. That's the 13th largest economy in the world. So where are we going? Cybercrime, and this is what I say, and I've said this. I firmly believe that cybercrime is the greatest challenge to the U.S. economy in the next decade. And I don't say that lightly. Is if we as a country don't get our hands around cybercrime and how it's affecting you and your businesses, we're in trouble. We really are. Because 75% of the targets being hit right now are small and medium businesses. 75%. And Mark's absolutely correct. A lot of these businesses are like, well, why would I be a target? Let me give you an example. I was at a local university, not HCC, but another university, and a student came up to me and he said, I got an email that somebody had stolen my dissertation. Wow. And they said, give me $1,000. And I thought they were kidding. They weren't. They published his dissertation.
Oh my God.
And he had to start all over.
Oh.
We have to understand that the criminal doesn't care what you have. Are you going to pay me to get it back? Why are they going after small cities? We see a lot of small cities getting hit. Because if I can lock a city out of 911 services, will you pay me to get that back? Absolutely you will. And so cybercrime will continue to rise, and it's getting worse, and that's unfortunate because now it's so lucrative. There's so much money in it that criminal gangs are starting to operate. We're calling it a rise of the cyber mafia. The Mexican drug cartels are actually starting to get into cybercrime because they can make money at it. And you're my targets, my friends. So let me give you another idea. On the dark web, I can go out on the dark web and I can purchase 100,000 email addresses for maybe $100. And I can rent ransomware from a programmer. I don't even need to know how to write programs anymore. I just give that guy 40% of the profit. And I send out that ransomware link to 100,000 people, 5,000 click on it, and that's a low number. 5% is low in a phishing exercise, and of those 5,000, 1,000 of you paid me $400, and that's all low. And even in low, I just made $240,000 on a $100 investment because you clicked. We've got to stop clicking. We've got to start using cybersecurity technologies, and if you're a company, IT is not an IT issue. Stop thinking that way. This is your issue. It's a board issue. We're going to see a lot more regulation coming in because privacy laws are moving in now. And because of the GDPR in Europe, but 8 states right now have privacy laws that if you lose somebody's data, you're going to get sued. And you're going to get sued by an attorney general's office, or you're going to get sued individually. Texas law will probably not pass this year or next year, but Texas will have a privacy law in the books in not too long. What are you going to do when you lose that data? And that's what's going to happen. You're going to find out really quickly how they're going to fine you up to 6 to 10% of your gross. That's the future.
You know, Mark and James, you guys talked about some really hard hits. And I gotta be honest, you were thinking about Alexa. I was thinking about Nest thermostat. How many of y'all have a Nest thermostat at home or a smart thermostat? Think about ransomware going to your Nest thermostat. And so you need to pay X amount of dollars, or we're going to keep your temperature on at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the type of things I'm thinking about. You know, I got a 72-year-old mother, and my mom wants that temperature to be around 65. And if it's hot, she's going to kill someone. I mean, really. So think about that. Just really basic things in your house can become a nightmare. So I think ransomware is a huge thing, but I think the one thing we need to talk about is about awareness. And you know, I don't want to make this about Houston Community College, but awareness is so key. Not just the awareness, but not just awareness in terms of you should know about cybersecurity, IT, and some basic things. But we need to start going deeper and learning about these technologies and understanding how it impacts all of us. So I think both Mark and James made a really good point.
Well, like just this week, I was talking to Cyber ISD, and there were 350 incidences in K-12 last year, and almost half of them were students and staff, and it's loss of data. And so the school districts are running into this, where the kids are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And I was talking to a guy from Australia, and he had a kid that one of the teachers said, "You are not smart enough in this class," and the kid took it as a challenge, and he hacked the teacher. He hacked the school, and then he went after a bank. Now that's where he made his mistake and he got busted. But in that time, he totally wrecked that teacher's credit before somebody got to it. So we just have to realize it can be that individual and that personal.
All right, gentlemen. So you have our attention, right? And this is the world that we play in. We are online. We can't avoid the internet. So what can people be doing to be able to protect themselves because they do have a presence online?
So I think if we look at the do's and don'ts of being online, and I think my answer is multifaceted, being a father of 4 with this one, but I think first and foremost, be positive. Don't accept everybody that has wanted to friend you online. I think the rules of religion and politics need to be followed online as well, right? But the don'ts, right? And looking at this from a security standpoint and from a corporate standpoint, I think that when companies look at social media and the way that's interacted, you've got to have some branding standards. I think that you also have to have rules around confidentiality. Do you guys just remember not too long ago in the media, and this was a false alert, but the missile that was headed towards Hawaii, right? And as that story unrolled, there was a Hawaii emergency agency that had a major password that was in the background of a social media selfie, right? And it was a sticky note on a computer, which is another no-no. But again, to have some rules around confidentiality and how that's handled is important.
Well, yeah, and I think we've got to look at do's and don'ts. Number one, we've got to get better on passwords. I mean, we think about it, but password management is horrific. 2/3 of us use 2 passwords online for everything. That's how easy that is, And then when we do use a password, we use a password that's a kid's name, a pet's name, a date. And the joke I always say is it's anniversary dates for women and divorce dates for men, right? But all of that is public record. We don't think about it, but have you ever done a public record search of yourself? Go out on background check and check yourself. All of your kids' names are there. I can find your pets on social media, and 75% of your social media passwords are easy. So now I can break your passwords, and we don't think about how easy that is. But like right now, the real estate industry is really suffering because the real estate industry hasn't really considered cybersecurity, but it's coming down to passwords. And what they'll do is a lot of title companies will send out a link to an e-document to get signed, and in that document will be a username and a password. And that password is the same password that they use to upload the original document into the e-document. So when the customer comes back and says, "Hey, I signed the document," that the bad guy who's reading your emails, and half of you have somebody reading your emails you don't like or don't know. That's another statistic you don't want to think about. But then they go in and they change the e-document and change the routing number and the account number. And I know of 4 down payments over $100,000 here in the Houston area within the last 6 months that have been rerouted to another bank account, and they didn't find out until they went to closing. How's that work at closing? Hey, we didn't get your money. I sent it. Now it's a legal issue. Now somebody's getting sued. Now we get into a whole thing, and the closing gets pushed off at its, at its major point. So we gotta start thinking about email's not trustworthy. Let's get honest about that. Email can't be trusted. I can easily spoof email, but so many of our businesses rely upon email that we don't think about what happened if somebody could compromise my email. What could they do with that information that's in there? It's crazy what kind of things we send.
So you hit on politics, religion, you talked about passwords, but I'm also thinking about how many of y'all are on social media. I mean, you start going to Starbucks, you start tagging where you're at. Well, I'm at this event today, we're at this event. I mean, if you go on vacation, next week I'm going to be going to DEF CON, now y'all know. Now, if I'm going on DEF CON, I don't want to tag where I'm at because, people can go to your house and they can do different things because they know that you're not home. So for me, I think it even goes really basic. It's just not letting people know exactly where you are until you've gone and have come back. For me, that's such a huge thing. My wife loves to post and tag where we're at. I'm like, can you please wait till we get home? So then people know where we've been, so I can post your pictures. But that's really a big issue for me, is really letting people know where you're at that specific time, because then they can go do other things to you.
Well, and think about it this way. We allow all these devices in our house. How many of them have microphones? Now let's not even talk about Alexa, but let's talk about Alexa. I encourage you to try this. Stand in front of your Alexa or your whatever device you have and say, turn off. Of course, and then talk about a vacation you want to take. And then go on a computer that's on that same area and go to Google or Amazon, and guess what will pop up in the advertising space? Oh, a trip. Here's why. The companies that we are dealing with online, social media companies, how much do you pay for their services? Well, nothing. Well, they ain't poor. So they're marketing your information. They've always been marketing your information. Please don't be surprised when all of a sudden, Facebook gets up there and says, oh yeah, we've been selling your data all along. Or when Amazon gets up and says, yeah, we listened to all of the offline conversations too, and we just use it to keep our voice recognition software better. You're being marketed. All of your search issues, when you search now, it's not protected anymore. Your internet provider can see what you're searching for on your internet, and they can market you based upon your search history. That's no longer protected. The Congress lifted that. No, you can't.
I wanted to add to this. So one of the biggest things I always talk about with our students is, it also needs to be a lifestyle change. Unfortunately, we're at a point in time where you can't be the way you were 20 years ago. It is a lifestyle change. You have to be a little more censored. You can't really discuss what you're doing. I think one of the biggest things is if you think about changing jobs. A lot of people like to pour their emotions on social media. I'm looking for a new job. My job isn't not doing well. That is slow down. You cannot put that stuff online. These are the things that are creating these issues as well. So it's a lifestyle change. It's not just necessarily your password, your basic things, but it's also what you're doing on a daily basis. What am I listening to? Where am I going? All your different habits, your finance. One of my biggest issues, that too. One of my biggest challenges is when I see people talking about their medical conditions. I had X, Y, and Z happen to me, this is what's going on. And I understand we all want thoughts and prayers, but sometimes it's better to just not talk about this and be a little more sensitive and be, I agree.
So it sounds like then, as individuals, we need to be a little bit more careful on what we put out there. But for a lot of us, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, even big businesses, they want to market themselves. So what can they do to be able to market themselves in the same way, stay safe? So you typically go second. We'll let you go first this time, James.
Oh, all right. Well, mix it up a little. Wow, I'm confused now. No. So how do you market and stay safe? Well, number one, when you're going out, for example, you're doing posts. You're doing your posts. Don't accept what's coming back to you just because of posts. Let's think about that on social media, especially. Like LinkedIn, very common. I'll go out and do a presentation, and I get a LinkedIn request. Do I really know this person? I mean, just because you hear me talk doesn't make us friends yet, right? I mean, buy me a drink, whatever. But
we're friends.
Sorry, Sean. But we need to start looking at it, we know we want to grow our networks, but our networks, we need to be a little bit more cautious about who we're sharing on our network. We go to networking lunches and we go to networking breakfasts and stuff like that, and you're exchanging a business card. That's even better, because at least we have some of that. So be careful about future things. future places you're going on marketing. You know, don't be like, if you're a real estate agent, I tell real estate agents all the time, you be real cautious, like on Zillow. You get a lead through Zillow, you have no idea if this person is really who they say they are. And you're showing up at a house by yourself with this person that you've never met before. Take someone with you. I mean, seriously, we've got to get back in that a little bit of personal security mindset and say, how can I be exploited here? Start thinking security ahead of convenience. Here's what I always say. Convenience and security are divergent. We want to be convenient, but at some point we got to back off our convenience a little bit and think of security first, especially if you're exposed. Especially if you're exposed.
So I think what I'm looking at goes back to the whole physical aspect of it. When you meet someone, do you bring them to your house right after you met them? Probably not, for the most part. So you want to have that dialogue and really get to know the person. But for me, I'm not going to add everybody on LinkedIn. I add you. But for the most part, though, whenever I'm looking to add someone, I always think about, do I know them? How do I know them? And how are we going to be able to collaborate and so forth? But at the same time, though, is you got to use the same mindset that you did 20 years ago. If I know you, am I going to invite you to my house? Am I going to invite you in my personal space? That's how I look at LinkedIn. That's how I look at Facebook. Okay. I know there's a lot of moderation. You can do a lot of different things to censor things, but you still need to keep in mind that you don't own Facebook. Someone else is controlling it, and tomorrow they can change their policy and all their agreements.
And let me step in one thing, and I'll give it to Mark. Money. That's the goal of the criminal. If money is involved, think about the process that you give money. And I'm going to take a slight divergent because it came up. Relationship fraud is a monster right now. You are meeting people online, and it's 1 in 4 people meet online. Great. But I run into so many people that will get a friend request from some, like the most common one I see is this military guy out in the desert. He's really good looking, and he's really just wants somebody to meet. You look really cute, and they start a conversation up, and then in no time it turns into money. My ex-wife contacted me and said somebody had asked her for money online. I said, well, how long did you talk to him? They said 2 weeks. How much money? $16,000. I was like, wow, want to get back together? No, just kidding. But the problem is they're going to ask you for money. Money and online, never. You don't exchange money with people based upon an online relationship. Every one of you, if you're in online relationships, go watch Catfish the series on MTV. Watch that for about a week, and you will turn off your phone and you'll stop all that online deals.
I think when people start to put ads out, whether it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, they start to see an influx of requests that are there. And they're so quick to tie this to a marketing dollar and go, hey, look, we're increasing our exposure that's out there. But if you think about this, best practice, have a form fill. Have something where somebody needs to come back to your site, fill out some data so you can get a domain and it starts to legitimize who they are. Let's take this event that we're at today. And I love baseball and I love our Astros. So let's say that this event is at the Astros. And I post on my Facebook page a picture of Sherman and I having a beer and we had a great game, right? Somebody scrapes that off of my Facebook, but I had no idea who they were. They also started to really whale me as an individual, right? And they went to my LinkedIn and they looked at my LinkedIn. They found out that Sherman and I had a relationship together. They found out who he was. Well, they sent an email to Sherman, but they sent Elliot not with 2 T's, but with 1. And they took 3I International, and it wasn't 3I, it was 3LL, right? And it looked the same when it came in. And I said in that email, that wasn't me. Hey, Sherman had such a great time, man. Can't wait to go to another game with you. He's in the middle of his busy day. He opens up that JPEG, he looks at it, and he goes, man, that was a great time. And he closes it, and he goes about his day. But the second that he opened that picture, we just put malware in his computer that will proliferate throughout his organization. So I think as it was said, we got to think the way we did 20 years ago. How many kids were lost, kidnapped, had issues, till we started to say things like, you know what, if your child walks home from school by themselves, don't put their name on the back of their backpack. It's these same common sense items that we have got to implement in technology today.
Yeah, so yeah, and building off of that same idea, we have to understand, first of all, trust but verify, right? So especially when money's involved, they need to show up in person. I mean, we say this for relationships all the time, meet the person as soon as possible. If you're in an online thing and even through LinkedIn, before you do any business, they need to show up in your office and you need to have a face-to-face. And they need to sign some paperwork if you're going to do a business transaction. And they need to sign something saying this is my routing number and this is my account number. They don't get to change that unless they show up again. Right now, a lot of companies are getting taken simply by somebody sending an email and saying, hey, I'd like to establish a business relationship, but in order to do that, I need some money. Please send $60,000 to this routing number, this bank account. And it's amazing how many people fall just, oh, it makes sense. Trust but verify. Make contact, physical contact, verbal contact through a number that you've already established. Millennials have learned something that we all need to learn. The first time they meet somebody, they get their text, they get their phone number. They immediately get their number in a business relationship and they put it in their phone as company whatever, this guy, and they will reach out to that person and say, hey, I just received an email from you. Was that meant from, did you mean to send that to me? Validate that before you ever start, getting into financial transactions. I think it's Sean's turn now.
So when it comes to being online, we're going to be able to be a little bit more secure. What can a lot of people that are here are business owners? And so you bring up privacy laws, you bring up just being able to keep our employees safe. So what can some of the business owners that are here, whether they have one employee or 500, what can they do to keep their employees safe?
I think when you look at protecting your business from a security standpoint, you've got to have a multifaceted approach. I think if we look at the way that the technology around even a bulletproof vest works today, there's multiple layers that are able to stop a projectile, and you have got to do the exact same thing with your security solutions in your business. So if there's one simple example that you can take home today, look at your security as a triangle. You're going to have one side of that triangle that is going to be your security solutions. That could be anything from your firewalls to your endpoint protections and many, many other things that you guys can implement to protect yourselves. The other side of that triangle is going to be your continuity or your backup. When you start to look at data loss globally, 6% of data loss is tied to catastrophic events, which might be anything from a Harvey to something as tragic as 9/11. The majority of data loss on a global basis is from bad actors and human error. That employee with no malice intent that clicked on the wrong file, right? And so by having good backup or continuity in place, you can always roll back and recover your data, evaluating your recovery point objectives and your recovery time objectives. So I feel that the weakest link that we have within corporations are great employees that are just undereducated on what they need to know within the cyber landscape. When we start to look at big business, from government to the FBI, everybody knows that there's a significant problem that is going on. But when we get down to the user level where we all sit at, people don't realize how serious this problem is. So having an awareness and training program that can teach people what to click on, what not to click on, is really vital within business.
Yeah, there's a statistic that shows there's 1 in 20 people in your business that click on everything. Everything. And they figure it's not their network. And they don't care. Doesn't happen. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, it can get bad, right? So yeah, I think awareness is a big part of it. From the other side point, every one of you needs to have a plan. You need to have an incident response plan in place before the event occurs. We do that for fire, right? I mean, a lot of times, we do that for, we do our fire things, but we don't have a plan for what happens if I get hit with ransomware. What's step one? When I was in the military, the story I tell is I was in the Philippines, and I got there brand new. I was 8th person on my shift, and they were running exercises, and the people that have been in the military know how funny those can be. And a guy comes running in and says, hey, there's a purple smoke canister out front. And I went out and looked and said, oh, we've been bombed. That's the purple smoke bin. The guy came in and said, okay, who's in charge? And he killed that person. He said, you're dead. And he hung a placard around his neck. And he said, who's next? This guy raises his hand, you're dead too. He killed all 7 until he got to me, and he said, all right, what do you do now? I said, I have no idea. You failed. Everybody needs to know their place in the plan, and they need to test the plan ahead of time. And I'll end with one more story, because people like stories. Had a company here in town, had a beautiful incident response plan. They never tested it. They got hit with ransomware, and step 1 said, unplug the internet. And they went to the data closet, and they said, let's unplug the internet, but it's locked. Who has the key? The IT manager. He's in Jamaica. We didn't think about that. They kicked the door in. They broke the door down in order to get to it. But they had never tested to find a very easy thing they could have fixed by just having a separate key zone. So test your plan.
Backup. You need a backup, you need another backup, you need another backup after that. So one on site, one off site, one somewhere, maybe in Jamaica.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, I don't know about Jamaica.
Well, for the most part, for us, for Houston Community College, we always look at awareness. I think it's so important to be able to put money into your employees and let them get some education. It's affordable. There's so much information out there. Just go through a program where they can get some awareness, for them to understand what's going on. You know, you think of the money and the costs associated with that, but if you put that money up front, it's going to save you in the long run time, money, and probably in your business. So I would say awareness is so huge.
Let me throw something out there because I'm feeling generous today.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of cyber awareness training. It's something that we sell for profit. We did so well with the company last year that we got like 100 free licenses of this software. So anybody that's in this chamber at this event, we can spin up an instance where you could take your employees through cybersecurity training. Kind of want them to pass with an 80 or better. If you have somebody get a 20, you know who your problem child is that you need to work with. But it's something that you can use on an ongoing basis and make it part of your hiring and onboarding practice. So my gift to the chamber today.
Thanks very much, Mark. We really appreciate that. So when it comes to just simplicity, guys, so a lot of this, high level a little bit, what can we, on the small scale, what should we be thinking that we should be keeping private that for so many of us we're keeping public, right? Like the Post-it note next to my laptop, it's got my password to get inside. What are some of those things that you kind of see that people are seemingly thinking that, hey, nobody can do anything with that, but we should be keeping private?
Yeah, I think that we have some things that are private that are still on the surface, and this is going to reiterate some of the points that we've already made here. But are you guys who want to go through an exercise with me? Who has a Facebook account? How many people have never changed your Facebook password? Okay. How many people have changed your Facebook password in the last 12 months? Last 6 months? Last 3 months? Well, we've got some bright people in this room, right? And so, so many people use this password for Facebook. Some derivative of this password ties to your banks and ties to other online accounts that you guys have. And as it was mentioned, it's usually something to do with a pet, it's to do with a birthday, and all this information is so easy to access in state databases to identify what somebody has, right? And you go, you know what, I put a fake birthday on my Facebook account, so nobody really knows what it is until everybody's telling you happy birthday, right? And so really starting to look at password management within our lives. There was a framework that was out there called NIST, and it stands for National Institute of Standards and Technologies, right? And NIST used to say that, hey, best practices is to have this 8-character complex password and change it every 90 days. And by complex, I mean, let's say our password, we wanted to make it the word Apple, right? So we would take the @ sign, PP, or P forward slash, or PP forward slash, the E, could be a 3, and then maybe for an S, we change it into a $sign, right? So it's complex. New NIST framework is that says that something that is not complex, but over 21 characters and never changed, is more secure. So if we took orange, eagle, shoes, blue, and put a unique character in between that, we probably have like 26 characters. The 8-character complex password would take like 30 days to crack. You take a 23-character password, nothing complex in it, it would take centuries to crack. So password management becomes vitally important in all aspects of our lives. Who likes their personal identity and their money? This is an area of our lives that we have got to invest time in, because it is like getting a hurricane in Houston, Texas. Guys, it's not a matter of whether it's going to happen, it's when.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we need to have an idea of what connections we have that are public that can be exploited. So on LinkedIn, we've got all these connections, and we had this one lady, and I felt bad for her, but on LinkedIn she had listed way too much information about herself. she had this whole profile about, her name was Margaret, but she went by Peggy, and she loved her 2 dogs. And this is LinkedIn.
Whoa.
And I loved her 2 dogs, and blah, blah, blah. And she worked for this company, and she was the finance manager. And it was listed. Well, in her connections were the 2 assistant finance managers at company X. Well, then on Facebook, she talked about next week she's going to Bali. And so the day she left for Bali, the 2 assistants got an email from Peggy saying, "Oh, girls, going to Bali, but just before I left, I got contacted by a company that said, hey, we need to tie down your business. Can you please transfer, $100,000 to bank account X, routing number X? Love you. The dogs are doing great. Named the dogs." It looked like it came from her because it did. It was an email she had sent last year when she got on another trip, and somebody had captured that email and just changed it up a little bit, and they hoped that one of those 2 dogs hadn't passed away, and they hadn't. And they sent the email, and the money was transferred. So we've got to be real careful what we're sharing. I think Sean's been hitting on this. It's time to kind of bring it back a little bit. Bring it back. Let's not get quite so sharey. We don't need to share so much information, and I think that just alone starts making us feel a little bit better. We got to be careful on our phones. The other thing is how hard is it for me to get your password or a passcode? Can I shoulder serve you? I shoulder serve people daily and get their passwords. Peter over their shoulder and I can get your password. I'm 6'3". Easy for me, especially for the short people. We don't pay attention to our pins sometimes and how hard it is for somebody to see. Airplanes. I could see that all day long. I was coming back from Madrid last year, and there was a lawyer sitting caddy corner from me writing up a divorce paper. I read the entire divorce document coming back from Madrid, including all the horrible details about these 2 people and their kids. I had all their information right there. This person didn't care. Think about it. Who's watching me, right? What could it be?
It's a lifestyle change. You have to change the way you're working. Here's the thing. The way you need to look at it is if you were walking down the street, would you want all your information out there? Would you want your social security on your forehead? Would you want your name, all your information? You gotta be more private. You really have to. And I think we're at a point where it's that awareness, being able to understand that, look, you can't be completely open online. I know we do a lot of posts and great inspirational messages. We post about what we're doing. I just got that pay raise. I just got that upgrade. We got to stop doing that because people are watching. And I know we want the great likes. That's the euphoria, right? We get the likes, and I got a like. I'm like 50 people liked me. I'm on Instagram. People making jobs out of this. I went to Hawaii and I got 50 likes. People love me. I just got to keep going. We got to stop that. I bought a brand new car. I got some new rims. That's great. You don't need to show everybody what's going on because it's counterproductive a lot of times.
Let me add one thing also, and this is in the Capital One, wake of the Capital One breach. What's in your wallet? Not Capital One. We need to lock our accounts. We need to lock down our credit. You need to lock down your kids' credit. The highest value social security number online is what we call a virgin social security number of a kid under the age of 18. Why are we not freezing their credit up until they turn 18? Contact the credit agencies and freeze them. Here's another thing that's happening. When somebody dies, freeze their credit. We have had a ton of cases where somebody has passed away and a bad guy turns around and uses that social security number post-mortem to create credit. We need to use those things. Freeze your credit. Freeze your kids' credit. Here's the worst thing about kids' credit damage. And 40% of kids when they reach 18 have damage to their credit that wasn't caused by them. It's usually a parent. So grandparents, here's a gift for your grandkids. Freeze their credit. And you get a code back. You just keep the code until they turn 18, then you give it to them. Don't give it to the parents. Right? It sounds weird, but that's just where things are right now.
A very strange world. So a question from the audience here. How effective are password generators like Northern? Mark, you talked a little bit about passwords. You want to address that a little bit?
I think it's probably more effective than not changing your password every 90 days and having a simplistic password that was your birthday and your dog's name. I think if you start to follow what's in this standards and are willing to make that kind of commitment to create some 20+ digit passwords, I think you're going to be better off long term.
Can I answer that? So LastPass is another one. Norton Security is one. LastPass is another one. You can make one really complex password, but then you have the application generate different passwords based on complexity through that application. That's also great too. So the same example.
Yeah, from a general standpoint, every one of you should be using a password management product of some type. Whether it's Norton, LastPass, Keeper, Apple's got its built in, they've got their keychain built in. Use something, and you know what's funny? People go, "Oh, well, how secure is it?" Well, it's a lot more secure than using the dates and your kids and all that kind of stuff. Use a password manager of some type.
The USB dongle. Maybe you want to talk about the USB dongle as well that's attached to that?
Oh yeah.
So now with LastPass, you can actually buy a USB key that attaches directly to that. So whenever you think it has like a thumbprint, I haven't used it yet, but so you physically plug it into your machine. So you put in your password, you put in the USB thumb, and you put your biometrics in. And from there, you got that additional authority as well.
Yeah. It's like $40.
Again, layered approach. Password, one way to start this process, but there's something that is free or costs next to nothing in order to implement. It's called multi-factor authentication. And it's the ability that you put in that password, it is going to send a text back to your phone that you get a little code and you've got to enter that in. And by having that dual authentication in there is where you can really start to heighten your security stance.
Yeah, and we're seeing it on phones now. I mean, I'm a big advocate of fingerprints on phones. There's some backsides to that, I'll tell you. I mean, I think we should use them at every chance. However, your phone should require your PIN on a reboot. And here's why. It's going to sound funny because I'm going to say this. I, as law enforcement, can require you to give me a fingerprint. I cannot require you to give me a password. So, if it reboots, you got a password there, I have to then break it myself. Your privacy is more important than even law enforcement. I'm saying that, yes. Don't put that in video now. But we just have to realize that the personal data that you're securing, and it's not just data on your phone, your laptops. If you're traveling, your laptops need to be secured. You need to have a password and an encryption on those devices. I had a guy go through Turkey, he went through Istanbul, and his laptop literally disappeared for an hour and a half straight out of the x-ray machine. And it just all of a sudden magically showed up, about an hour and a half later with screw marks on the thing. They had taken his laptop apart in the airport. Should have a password on that. And if you're traveling and you leave your laptop or your device inside your hotel room, there's a lot of videos you can watch out there and you'll never do it again.
All right, so you bring up laptops. You see this often. Does covering the camera lens on your computer do anything?
Yeah, it keeps people from watching you in your bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there are known viruses that will turn on your camera without you knowing it. So it does do something. The other thing is just shut it. Shut your laptop every so often. Turn things off once in a while. I tell people that all the time with their phones. Turn it off. Turn it off once in a while. Turn off your routers. Turn off your laptops. But people don't. They leave them on, open, turn to weird things. Yeah, it does do something.
Add a little cover to it. Put some electrical tape, whatever it takes, right?
All right, thinking differently. So now it's appreciate the time. We want to go just open it up a little Q&A. It's 12:45. We just maybe have about 5 minutes for Q&A. So anyone have a question here? I'll come grab you.
Thank you, guys. Very good. How concerned should we be with the theft of biometrics, fingerprint readers? What about facial recognition type things?
We haven't seen any major losses of it. The way, again, depends on the technology. I mean, like with any product, do some homework. Especially if you're going to implement it in like an enterprise environment. Do some homework, make sure, talk to other companies that use the product. They'll give you recommendation type stuff. But we haven't seen any, I can't think of any major losses of biometric data like that. And in the cases that it's been, they steal the hash. They steal the mathematic hash, but I think in those cases it hasn't been effective.